Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Halligan, and welcome back to saying the president's name 100 times today. Today, we're going to be saying James Monroe, but first, before we even do that, I want to drop down a few facts about James Monroe. He is the fifth president of the United States, and he was in Virginia and fought with the Continental Army in the Revolutionary War. He's a delegate of the Continental Congress and served as a U.S. Senator and a governor of Virginia and a minister of France and Great Britain. He got injured in the Battle of Trenton, New Jersey in 1776 alongside of the General George Washington. James Madison beat Monroe, and Monroe decided to agree and prove to be a great asset in the War of 1812, which is why he went again, and then he finally got president. But James Madison beat James Monroe, which is a little funny. James Monroe, with John Quincy Adams, assisted in making the Monroe Doctrine. It is a foreign policy opposing European colonizing in the Western Hemisphere. And here's also a little fact. I don't know if you know about this, but he is not related to Marilyn Monroe. I know it's quite disappointing. I know most of you are probably like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's not related. So, yeah, that's all the facts about him. And yeah, if you're willing to stay for the 100 times of saying the president's name, we're going to get right into it quite shortly. But without asking, if you like this type of content, leave a like, leave a comment. And yeah, I won't delay. Let's get right into it. All right, so we're gonna get back right into this. I got boot up my counter, so give me a sec. If you're wondering why my voice sounds different, I'm actually using Audacity and a microphone. Yeah, I thought I'd do something a little different this time, and I have it attached to my adapter. So yeah, I think this microphone isn't that bad, and we're gonna get right into this quite shortly. If you're wondering why I started off with like 5 facts about the president, one of my friends recommended it to me actually because I was like, what could I do better? And he just gave me a way make it more entertaining, I guess. So, I mean, if you got something you want to bring to table, I would be more than happy to listen to you. If you got any criticisms, constructive criticism, that is. But without any further ado, let's get right into this. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. That's 10. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. That's 20. James Monroe. 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 That's 30. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. It's 40. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. That's 50. James Monroe. 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 and James Monroe. That is 60. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. 70. James Monroe. 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 Sorry. Hiccup. James Monroe. 80. James Monroe. 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 And James Monroe. That's 90. James Monroe. 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 All right. That's 100. Thank you all for watching. Feel free to leave any comments that you wish to leave. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.